But guys, let's get started. And Zach, you usually lead off, so this one's yours.
All right. So Patrick will probably start off basic way by Let's first recapping basic recap of this past 2021 season. Of course, we all know about what happened in 2020 when COVID hit, but after that, when it came back to a full season in 2021, it was a season that you made yourself look like quite an interesting team to watch, both in the America East and the nation. How was this past season like for you and the rest of your squad?
For me, the season was a lot about learning about myself and working through a little bit of adversity and just accepting different roles and becoming a more all-around player. As a team, we had a lot of fun. We were scoring at a great clip. Everybody was kind of working together. We had a lot of different new pieces on the offense that helped us become like that ranked team we were. And we just had a lot of great coaching. We learned a lot from our coaches. We're getting more comfortable with them every year. And they just give us such a competitive advantage to just get to that next level and be that team which we're trying to be, that we all think Stony Brook really can be.
And Pat, we knew that this was... Yep.
This most recent saga for you, though, kind of started last year. I mean, obviously the season was shortened due to COVID, but yours was going to be shortened anyway due to injury. So take us from that point and the path to, one, getting back in the lineup, and two, getting more time in once you did.
So I got hurt last year at Rutgers. That ended my season. I had a surgery probably 1 week after that game. I think the game was in March at Rutgers. And next thing you know, I'm getting sent back to Canada because it's COVID and the whole season shut down. So I had a very odd kind of comeback where I had to do a lot of rehab over FaceTime, a lot of texting with our trainers, trying to communicate with trainers at home. So it was kind of a different path, but I had to kind of do a lot of stuff in the darkness, as you could say, where I didn't have a lot of people helping me. So I had to learn a lot about myself, and I had to kind of push myself where there wasn't a lot of people there to always push me. But after we got back to school, it was full speed ahead. I had everybody helping me again. We had Kate in the weight room. We had Patty in the training room, and they were all there for me whenever I needed. And we kind of got me back to full health pretty quickly, which I'm very thankful for. And when the season came around, I was just kind of starting to peak, and I was kind of put into a different role. I was coming out of the box as a midfielder. So that was something I've never really done before. I had to dodge a little bit more. I had to kind of play in different positions, and it kind of made me an all-around better player. And I think it made me a better teammate because I had to go through this adversity, and I could help other guys that were in different positions that they weren't more comfortable in because I was doing it too. But Coach Chanichuk and Coach Gilardi, they really just kind of said this is where we could use you. If you can make it work, we're going to give you that time. You have the opportunity to earn time. So I kind of just worked and asked a lot of questions. And by the end of the season, I was working my way right back in the lineup, and I felt really good.
When you came back to the team, it was getting a little bit crowded on the offense. So, and we noticed it too, that you're going to have to work your way in, and you found your way to do it by playing a slightly different role. But every time you did, you produced. And I remember talking to Coach Gilardi about this, and Ken remembers this too, that find minutes for this guy. And he said, yeah, we're trying.
Yeah, that was a great, it was a really cool thing that happened. I was getting into the right spots and people were making me look good. So they all the guys on the offense made it easy for me. We had two transfers that were unbelievable, Matt DeMeo and Dylan Polinetti. They helped our offense a lot, and they just I had to go into a new spot, but they still made it easy for me. playing on the wing with Paul and Eddie, and then Matt DeMeo's range to shoot the ball, it just made the game so easy. And those guys opened up the inside. So when they were holding the ball, I could actually go back to like my roots and get back on that crease and kind of jam up the middle a little bit and look for those windows.
And it showed. I mean, the Stony Brook offense was the most productive offense, I think, in all of the American East, one of the best in the NCAA. And, this was one where the stats weren't bad in your last full season, but they were, towards the middle of the pack. And obviously new coaching comes in and a new system's in place. Can you talk about, A, adjusting to that system, and B, doing it while knowing, all of these strange, unusual circumstances are impacting everything going on in terms of learning the system and rehab?
So with learning the system, it started with Coach Ghilardi and Coach Chanichuk holding all of our hands, walking us through everything. There was a lot of learning, even with not this year, but season before. That was where most of the learning was done. And they stripped it right down, and we went back to the basics, and they taught us everything. And as we slowly kind of matured into like the group we are now and going to be in the future, they could make the offense a little bit more complicated because we started from nothing, and they taught us the entire game. So once we learned, they could add different things, different movements, and we were able to do it because we knew the basics and we had an understanding where everything came from. Now with rehab, it was a lot of watching. I had to learn. I had to ask questions. I'm a guy that has to learn from walking through things. So I try to be on the field as much as possible. I try to be very vocal and ask questions. And even the best way when I learn something is I teach somebody else. So if I know something really good in the offense, I'll try and help somebody else out that's stuck in the part that I know. And that just makes it almost second nature for me.
One of the things I like about this team is what you just mentioned, is that once you guys learned each other, you played a very, very smart game. When originally described to us that there'd be greater emphasis on offense, usually when you see a team like that, you're thinking about an Albany, where they just keep shooting, and whatever finds its mark. Not necessarily you guys. You had the firepower, but you also had the discipline.
So the discipline is something that it takes you a while to get. We went through like a lot of days in practice where we're just shooting shots way too early in a shot clock, or we're kind of settling early. We had to realize there's some shots you can get all the time, and then there's some shots you have to work for. The shots that we work for, we want to take all the time. And the shots that we settle for, if they're late in the shot clock, like let it go, give it a chance. But we don't want to take those shots that we settle for that we can always get too early. And we want to take it full advantage of the ones that we're working for. Because if you work for a shot, we could get a goal out of it. We don't want to waste those opportunities.
Yeah, there were not a lot of wasted opportunities. I especially remember at the heart of the season, your team was taking 40, 45, 50 plus shots a game. I mean, it was remarkable, and scoring at an around 45, 50% clip. You're reaching about 16, 20 goals a game. And again, with so many pieces there, stepping up, Chris Bickel, yourself, obviously Dylan Palinetti, who really, was overlooked by a lot of schools and managed to really make a name for himself this past season. Can you talk about the crew, you guys had, and everyone really figuring out their role?
I think a lot of it starts with Chris Bickel, but then a lot of it starts with Tom Hahn as well. Tom Hahn takes a beating every day, and he kind of gets up and does his thing and scores big goals, holds the ball. I think it was really good for him that there was more ball carriers on the attack. Now, like, there was 3 guys that could hold their own and carry the ball on attack, so it made it a lot easier for all 3 of them. Like, Corey could hold the ball, Paulinetti can hold the ball, Hahn can hold the ball. They can all dodge. So it's very versatile, and it's hard to make matchups because it's like, all right, who are we going to let beat us this week? That's pretty much what defenses had to do. And then from the midfield, Chris Bickel was just blowing past guys, and he just would shoot the ball, and he shoots it so hard. He was finding the back of the net. But then you got Matt Anderson, who is one of the slipperiest guys in the league on that righty wing. And he can just go underneath, he can go top side, and he's got that high release, so it's just hard for goalies to read. We got Matt DeMeo with that underhand shot. Like Mike McCannell, I don't know how he does it, but he does it. The guy's a magician out there. Like I'd hate to miss anybody because there's so many guys that just contribute so much. And the best part was we didn't have guys stepping on each other's toes because we had guys that are good at different things. There wasn't guys fighting to do the same thing. Everybody was good at a different thing, and we had guys doing their jobs.
Agreed. And I mean, you just see it in the stats. I mean, again, you guys scored 200 goals this past season. Opponents were held to 149, and majority of those were assisted goals on your front. Meanwhile, you look at the team 2 seasons ago, and you're maybe around 30-40% of those shots is assisted. You know, it was definitely more of a team game from your guys' front, and the results showed. You know, it worked. Yeah, it's 8-6 record overall, but at the same time, you guys really went on a hot run against Marquee's competition during this season.
Yeah, we definitely did. We kind of found our groove. It took us a while everybody had to find their role. And once that happened, it made the game a lot easier. But we had a lot of fun this year, and we were scoring and we were moving, and it just felt like it was very free flowing. Even though we did have a structured offense, there was still like we could still play lacrosse and like have fun and like shoot the ball when we thought we had a shot. Or if you think you can beat your guy, go beat him, take it to the net. So like, yeah, we had this structure. We wanted to do things a certain way, but there was like, if you had an advantage or you could do something, go do it and go get it.
Yeah, and one of the wins
go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, one of the wins that you had this season in the American East was against UAlbany. It was such a very tough game to go through, but in the end, your team prevailed. You put up a team high, or probably your personal best this past season in 3 goals. You seem to have UAlbany's number over the last few seasons, being them the last 2 times, even though UAlbany has had their fair shares of being pretty decent the way that Stony Brook Women's Lacrosse has been. So how do you see your team being able to find the answer against the Great Danes, even though it almost seems like they would have a chance against you?
For those Albany games, it's pretty easy to get up for. You know what I mean? I've lost a lot of tough ones to that team, so it's pretty personal. And there's a lot of guys that feel the same way. And I think there's just a lot of guys in their team that might take that game for granted, where like they think they can walk all over us because they beat us like a couple times in a row. But now it's like we're older now. I've been through it. There's a lot of guys in the locker room that have been through it, have played in those games. And we're not taking anything, like we're going right at them. We're not sitting back on our heels. We're like a boxer controlling the middle of the ring. We want to hit first and hit hard and keep hitting. So those games are easy to get up for, and we just have to realize like we're a good team too. And the confidence makes that game a lot easier for us. And we saw that this year. There was not a doubt in any person in the locker room's mind that we were not winning that game.
However, we have to mention UMBC because those 2 games were murder. I mean, playing them so close, playing them so tough. Talking about a toe-to-toe boxing match, both of them. Lose one by a goal late and then lose in overtime. And especially when you feel like you're in a position to beat them and just not able to get past them. How tough was it facing UMBC this year?
UMBC was a good squad. They threw a lot of different things at us, and we just I honestly don't even know what to say. It's still like one of those ones where like you wish you could. I don't know, like if there was something else I could have done, or like you do anything to have like those little opportunities back. But they definitely did. They had our number for a little bit. You know, the ball's got to bounce at the end of the day, and there was probably a couple more bounces we should have had. But, in the future, like that's something that's going to help the guys in the locker room now. And even me in the rest of my career, like you don't look over anybody. Like every game's a battle, no matter who you play. And you you got to just make sure you're giving it your all the time, and take advantage of like those shots that I was saying, like the shots you work for, you have to score. And that's something that, we're always going to be working on. But, that's just like as clean as basic as I could explain those games. Like,
because what happened, after you destroyed Binghamton, then you have the tough loss in overtime versus UMBC, a 1-goal loss to end the season at Vermont, and then have to take on Vermont again. And Vermont, I'm really referring to the semifinal game more so than the last regular season game. They managed to take the air out of the ball completely. How were they able to control the tempo with you guys when your game really centers around you guys controlling it?
I think it's more about we got to have the ball enough to play at that clip. If you don't have the ball enough, you tend to slow it down, give your defensive rest, just to kind of balance the field. So you could say we got out of our rhythm a little bit because we didn't have the ball as much as we wanted to sometimes. But it was just, again, like they're a good team, and it didn't look like we were doing the stuff we usually do when you go back and watch the film, because we were holding the ball, we were giving the D a break. Instead, we weren't pushing transition, playing fast, and all those other attributes that made us that high-powered offense. So we kind of got away from who we are because they were able to control the ball.
Agreed. You see that in the second quarter. There was no score from either team in that second quarter. Both teams were really holding on to the ball and trying to possess it for a lot of the clock. It was unorthodox, unusual, something we really didn't see, and was it was something where it worked for one quarter, but Vermont immediately responded with 5 goals in the third, and you really saw that momentum shift. For Stony Brook as well, they really had their struggles in the semifinals of American competition over the past 4 or 5 years. And even going back again a couple of years ago where they were the number 1 seed, they were managed to get upset by UMBC. Kind of just take us through what goes into training for those semifinal games and really what makes it a different animal from the rest of the season.
I think the biggest thing is the regular season. You put your body through a lot that whole season, and then you come back to this, it's like make it or break it game. And, guys are beat up, and you just got to kind of battle through it. And I think the biggest thing is there's almost like a stigma on that semifinal game that we're kind of getting rid of right now, because we know we're a good team. We're getting that confidence now. We haven't always had it. And the more confidence we have, even though you're banged up, it's going to make it a lot easier in that semifinal game. Guys aren't going to be gripping their sticks tight. They're going to be able to play free, play fast, and play that offense, that high-powered offense we want to have. So I think it's more of getting there more often and getting more guys in that game that know what it's like. And the more guys that play that game and know what it's like, the easier that game becomes.
Yeah, I think we really saw a great glimpse of what this team could look like, what their future looks like. Anthony Gillardi in his first official full season with Stony Brook, finally getting his first conference games in as head coach for Stony Brook. And then you get Dylan Palinetti in his first official season in collegiate play after transferring from Maryland as a redshirt freshman. That was just a big stroke of luck that Stony Brook got out of him, because he was playing lights out this season, American East Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year. How impressed were you to see how a freshman like Palinetti could rise up and be that type of leader immediately?
So me and Palinetti sat next to each other in the locker room this year, so we got really close. I'm a little bit more of a louder guy in the locker room. You could say I talk a little bit more. So he was next to me. He came in all quiet, a little bit timid, but he was a player. So my kind of goal for myself was just to talk to him as much as I could, get him as comfortable as I could as possible, just so he had that confidence on the field to do whatever he wanted and be the player he was. And I'm not taking any credit for that, but I just want to make his transition to Stony Brook as easy as possible, because he is a great player and he's going to help the school a lot. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity to sit next to him and even play with him. Me and him would shoot after practice all the time, or we'd checking out each other's sticks all the time. And he would even teach me a lot, after practice, about shooting the ball. He kind of helped me get an underhand or sidearm stroke this year. I was trying to help him get a overhand one, and we would just shoot all day after practice. And we we made lacrosse fun again, and I think that's kind of what he was looking for coming home. So he was a great addition to our team, and we were happy to have him.
Do you see him taking on more of a leadership role, especially, I mean, you guys had a luxury this year. You had the super seniors, and you had, which is one of the reasons why I'm sure the offense was a little crowded, and you had a lot of offensive options, as you mentioned, but is there ever a situation where you have the go-to guy, and is Palinetti growing into that role as when you need a goal, absolutely, positively must have that goal, he's there?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of it's going to be a passing of the torch. Tom Hahn was that guy for us for a long time, and he was great at it. Chris Bickel was great at it. It was just those would be like the two different looks from either attack or the midfield. Those guys were clutch. They owned their matchups. They were accountable. They took pride in that. And I think Paulinetti's getting there. He has the skill. He has the ability. He gets a little bit more confidence. There's a little bit of that good arrogance you need. You have to know who you are and what you can do. And sometimes you just have to demand the ball. And a lot of good players will demand the ball. And once he starts doing that, the torch will be passed, and he'll be that guy. When coach calls a timeout, they'll be writing it up for him.
And his rise was incredible. I mean, again, this was a guy who was overlooked by many collegiate schools and programs. And even a couple years ago in Maryland, where he didn't get a lot of playing time, coming home to Stony Brook and not only earning a starting role, but dominating, relishing in that position, being an incredible playmaker, setting so many program and conference records as a freshman, mind you, taking over records held once by Jehovah Natko, who is an incredible shooter and skill player in his own right. I mean, did you know he was going to be the real deal when you first stepped in? When did it kind of sink in that this is going to be the guy for Stony Brook?
Well, you kind of see a glimpse of it almost every day in practice. He does this stuff where you're like, did that really just happen, or did he just And I kind of laugh and because I always talk to him when I would pump his tires, and he would kind of give me a hard time. We go back and forth a little bit, but I'd try to tell him how good he was, and sometimes I'd joke around, or sometimes I'd have to be serious so he understood it. But I saw glimpses of it all the way through. Then you see that Sacred Heart game, and then the game just kept stacking up. Even in Syracuse, we didn't have the best game, but he was still he wasn't a freshman in that game. He was demanding the ball. He was going to the net. He looked a lot older than a freshman in that game. So that was kind of where I kind of realized he proved himself before that, but then he didn't back down when we were up against some real deal top of the line competition, and it really showed. So yeah, I kind of saw it, and then I started to believe it too.
Yeah, he led the conference, 36 goals, 55 points, and really once that Sacred Heart game, once he dropped 5 goals, 6 points, 6 goals, 7 points, really got the ball rolling, I thought. Not only for himself, but also your squad in terms of, hey, you guys can accomplish a lot. And yeah, ultimately you didn't get the result you wanted, but I thought this program in 1 year, going from unranked to being amongst the best 15 programs in the nation, I thought was a testament to how much growth we really saw over the past couple of years from Stony Brook.
Yeah, and I think Paulinetti also helped Tom Hahn a lot. It took a lot of pressure off him. He was getting old. The older you get, the easier it is to get beat up. So it made Hahn's job a lot easier, even though Hahn was still able to score at the clip he does. But he just had a little bit less responsibility. So I think it made his game a little bit easier for him, so he could just take full advantage.
Yeah, looking at that too, I kind of want to take it back now to your freshman season. I obviously didn't perform at the level of Palinetti, but again, 17 goals, 25 points, 33 ground balls. You were third in the team in scoring and had all rookie conference honors. So, it wasn't like you had too much trouble adjusting to the college level of play. How were you able to adapt so well? Have you seen, again, fellow freshmen like Dylan Palinetti be able to adapt to the college game so well?
So the biggest difference for me and Paulinetti was I don't even like comparing myself to him because he's a lot better player than I am. But if I were to compare, Polinetti knew where he liked to be on the field. He knew his spot, and he could do it, and he could execute at it, and that's where he did. He hung out on his lefty wing, and he did his job. I didn't play a lot of field lacrosse coming into college, so for me, I had to kind of find my spot. I didn't know, like, at first I was kind of playing midfield, then I was playing attack, and then they put me on the crease. So I had to find a spot where I felt most comfortable and I could kind of help the team to my best of my ability. So once I did that, then it was just kind of repetition. The coaches, when I was here freshman year, they had a lot of belief in me. They liked my hard work. They liked the ground balls, the extra possessions. So they took the time with me and they worked with me on the crease. And after a lot of work with those coaches, you know, I kind of found my role on the crease there, and they did a good job of letting guys know that they could throw it to me at any time. And there was a lot of guys that believed in me, like Jack Walsh and even Chris Piquel this year, like from freshman year. He remembered and he told me, he's like, Pat, I'm throwing you the ball today. They're sliding to me fast. And, you know, everything kind of just worked out. But I didn't really have a roadmap once I got here. I kind of had to build one.
Now we have to segue into the future. We talked a lot about the past, spent almost half an hour on it. You'd still have a year of eligibility left, but you're not using it here at Stony Brook. Tell me a little more about your next move.
So my next move is to Lindenwood. It's a school in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm really excited about it. They have it's a little bit of a smaller school, but it's very nice. The facilities are amazing. The coach there is one of the nicest guys I've talked to on the phone. He cares about his guys. He's been there for I don't remember if it was 18 or 16 years, but he's been there for life. He played there. It's part of him, and he wants to. It's not a stepping stone for him. He wants to build something there. His family's there, so I really like that. I didn't want a coach that was using a program as a stepping stone. I wanted somewhere where they believed in where they were and took pride in what they were doing at that spot. So I'm going to Lindenwood, and I'm very excited about this new chapter in my life. I'm thankful to Coach Gallardi and all our coaches here, even Coach Nagel, for giving me a chance at the start. I probably wouldn't have any options if it weren't for them. So they put me in position to look good on the field, and now I had kind of a small choice of schools, and I'm really excited with my choice.
So they're located in St. Charles, Missouri, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just looking at now D2 is kind of like, in terms of what people know about the schools in D2, kind of like sandwiched between D3 and D1 in a way that there are a lot of lesser-known schools in D2, a lot of well-known schools in D3, like NYU, for example. But in this case, what's the level of competition like D2 versus D1?
I'm not really sure yet, but I don't want to take shots at anybody or because I don't know, but I'm going to go with speed's probably one of the biggest things. When I made my jump from junior B to junior A in box lacrosse, I saw the biggest difference was the speed. So I think the game might slow down a little bit, but I'm not really sure. I'm just hoping to go in and be an impactful player for them and kind of take on a role and just contribute to a successul season.
Yeah, and so that was a big question too. Is why were you interested in transitioning down? Because usually you see the inverse, going up from D3 to D1. You see a lot of basketball, for example. Why were you interested in leveling down to Division II?
It wasn't really based on like the division. It was more about the academics at the school, and then the relationship I could build with a coach. And I built this relationship pretty quickly, and I trusted him. He was always there for me. I call, he answers. Doesn't matter the time. And he was just honest with me, and it seemed like he really cared. So I was really excited about that. And at the end of the day, I don't really see myself as a field lacrosse player. I see myself as a box lacrosse player through and through. So this step hopefully will give me a little more time to like focus on me and, work out a lot harder, work out more. Maybe the lacrosse will be a little bit easier on my body and I'll be ready to play for that NLL season or whatever's coming next.
Knock on wood, of course. Yeah, and I think that perfectly transitions to our next topic for sure was box lacrosse. Because as you said, you didn't start out in field lacrosse. Started out in the box game, and ultimately you're trying to look into continuing to play professionally in the NLL, for example, Professional Box League. So what was it that got you first hooked into the game of lacrosse and ultimately box lacrosse?
So my Uncle Pat played box lacrosse, and my parents brought me to a couple of his games, and I just loved the speed. You could say I was a hyper kid growing up, so my parents needed somewhere to put me to tire me out when I was home, mm-hmm. so I could relax a little bit and give them a break. So lacrosse was perfect. You run around, you can hit people, you can't get in trouble for hitting people, and it kind of worked out. I liked going to my uncle's games, and he was me and my uncle still play catch. We just went to my cottage in northern Michigan a little while ago, and we'll bring the sticks on the beach and just play some catch and like talk about like how the games I used to go to. But
one of the big differences between box and field lacrosse, obviously, is the smaller space in which you play, which is the size of an NHL arena, 200 by 85. It's what they do in Canada when the ice melts. And yes, that means that all those limitations can get into the game, like balls rebounding off the glass and having to play that. And the one big difference that field players that transition to box notice the most is that in the field game, you can switch hands. Not in box. You're either a lefty or a righty.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That was a big transition for me here, and I kind of just figured it out with all the coaching Coach Ghilardi and Coach Janchuk did. But we still find a way to figure it out because we only play with one hand back home, so it makes it you develop your skills, I think, a little bit faster, and you develop your skills a little bit more because you don't worry about doing both hands. You just practice one way, and that's all you have to worry about. But I think the biggest transition for me was the picks. In box, you're allowed to be a little bit more physical on the picks. You can move a little bit. You can push a little bit. Here in field lacrosse, you have to be stationary. Your feet have to be planted. And you just I got a lot of moving picks early, and that was a big learning curve.
That's funny because you mentioned off air basketball offense, and I'm thinking, there you go. You get away with a lot more on picks in lacrosse than you do in basketball.
Yeah, for sure. We push a little bit. We bump a little bit more. It's I still think I played basketball as a contact sport, so I'm probably not the best guy to ask about basketball, but we're a little bit more physical, and they let us stretch the limitations a little bit more.
And that's another thing too, because as you said, you playing field lacrosse. I'm sure were you also a hockey player too growing up as well?
Yeah, it's hockey till the ice melts, and then you pick up your lacrosse stick and you start playing until the ice is back.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So what was it like being a dual and ultimately a triathlete? Getting involved in all these sports as you were growing up, number one, and ultimately deciding lacrosse was where you wanted to continue venturing in.
So being a dual sport, it was just more, it started young. Like I started playing lacrosse at 3, and I think I started playing hockey at 4 maybe. So it was just always for playing as much as possible, having the most fun, seeing your friends, and you just kind of practice and you hang out with those friends, and then you play road hockey. You're with your lacrosse friends, you play lacrosse. So it was just you're always playing, and you don't realize, but you just keep moving up, and your skills keep developing, and the sport takes you. So it just keeps taking you to where the next level and the next level if you practice enough. And it was never a chore. It was always oh, we got lacrosse day, let's go. Or if we don't have lacrosse day, you're calling your lacrosse buddies, you're playing lacrosse in the backyard. Or you don't have hockey today, you're calling your buddies and you're having a street hockey tournament. And you're playing until the street lights are on. And that was just what we did. So it wasn't really like I love playing two sports, and it was something I'd still do if I could. But at the end of the day, I had to make a choice once I started getting some scholarship offers. And everything for hockey happens a little bit later. So I was a decent hockey player. I wasn't bad. I wasn't great, but I wasn't gonna bet on that, knowing that I had some, what you could say were sure thing, like scholarship offers to play lacrosse or move up to the next level. So I kind of had to make a decision pretty young. I think it was 10th grade. I had to pick, and I chose lacrosse. But then I still played high school hockey for a little bit too, just to keep playing. But I stopped playing the travel hockey.
One of the most entertaining things about watching, let's say, John Tavares when he's with the Islanders, and when Matt Molson was also there, is that both of them had a similar background, that they bounced back and forth between lacrosse and hockey. And, of course, John Tavares' uncle is one of the greatest lacrosse players ever. But you see in their game, especially close in, making a lacrosse-style move. I know where you got that from. Do you see a lot of that?
You see a decent amount of it, but that's like the stuff I was talking about before. Like, you don't have the hockey that day, so you're playing hockey with your buddies and you're playing road hockey, and there's just no rules. Everything goes. You're trying everything. You're having fun, and it's just you're competitive. You want to try new things, and it's just I think it's just organic. It was nothing that like he would just go. I don't think it was something he would just go practice because I'm going to use this at this time. It was just something he did when he was playing with his buddies, and he probably just saw an opportunity to do it. I don't think it's something that gets planned out, but I think that stuff's awesome. And I think it's great for both sports. It's great for the fans, and it's great for growing the sport. It makes people interested. It makes people think about where they got it. So I think it helps everybody out. It's a win-win.
Speaking of which, too, when some of the best players, as you said, made that leap from lacrosse to hockey, and it working out well, as you said. John Tavares, also Jonathan Toews, Connor McDavid, who is the best, most creative goal scorer, I think, in the NHL. Maybe Svechnikov, who has perfected the, ironically enough, the Michigan goal, or that lacrosse goal behind the cage.
That's definitely a lacrosse move.
Yeah.
But the great thing is, working the X. It's definitely Well, who was great at working the X was Gretzky.
Right.
Yeah.
But same concept. Unfortunately, when he was with the Rangers, they'd bring guys in constantly, like Luc Robitaille and stuff like that, to handle his passes. Wayne Gretzky could go tape to tape to any of us, and we should be able to score. But in any case, I'm digressing. The great thing about the box game, obviously, is that they are trying to grow the sport. They're trying to grow the field sport with the Premier Lacrosse League. But I remember the NLL, and I also know that you were talked about as a high draft pick for box lacrosse. So you're going to play for a year in school, and then you're going to enter a draft. How's that going to work?
So the draft is August 28th. It's coming up. We're still kind of going through it right now, but we're allowed to get drafted if I'm like granted that if that happens for me, which I hope it does. But if that happens, I'm still allowed to go to school, play. I would not play in the league this year, the pro league, and that team would own my rights if that were to happen. But so I'm allowed to get drafted this August.
Okay, because the season doesn't start till following spring, right?
The season's starting in December. It's December this year.
Oh, so you can't play this year because you're playing in college, but then you start next year.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. That's where it got a little confusing because, of course, in other sports, that doesn't work that way. But in lacrosse, obviously, they make an exception.
They actually just made that rule last year because of the guys taking the fifth year.
Right. And it's a great rule. I'm sure you'd agree, in terms of extending that. Not only, of course, as an athlete, but also academically, being able to, further your academics and studies.
Yeah, they're giving us a great opportunity here where we could still be picked up by a team, but they're still going to let us, finish our college career, finish going to school, and give us all the opportunities in the world to be successful. So I can't complain, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
And you've been anticipated as a top draft pick, being in that first round. What were your thoughts on that when the reports first came out? And also thoughts on, do you have any preference on teams you want to play, or are there any players you're kind of eyeing that you would love to play with or against?
Team-wise preference, I wouldn't say there's too much preference, but honestly, I'm just excited for the opportunity if I'm lucky enough. And when all that stuff came out, honestly, I was excited, but I was a little bit nervous because there's a lot that can happen in between that time. There's nothing that's locked in, and I just didn't want to think of it like it was something that's going to happen. I would you got to keep working. There's a lot of stuff you have to do still, and it's not done. So wherever I go, whenever I go, hopefully I get drafted. It's just the opportunity to take another step to the next level. And at the end of the day, all I could ask for is an opportunity. So wherever the opportunity comes and whatever time it comes, I'll be here ready to go. And I'm just thankful for being able to keep playing a game at the end of the day.
And you won't say it, but I'm biased, so I'll say it. I'm hoping you get picked up by the New York Riptide. I mean, you'll still be back home. You'll be playing at the Barn at National Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale. And again, a local team in the New York Riptide who struggled a bit last season, but definitely potential to really pick it up. I mean, to me, that'd be really fun to watch, especially an adept goal scorer like you.
Yeah, there was my box lacrosse coach of the Burlington Chiefs, Dan McCrae, plays there. Dan Lomas plays there, a guy from Burlington who's helping out with our program. There's a lot of guys that are there that are from kind of back home, so that wouldn't be a bad place. But there's a lot of Windsor boys that are out there that would be cool to kind of reconnect with. Brett Hickey, Josh Jubenville. I hope I'm not missing any more guys, but there's a lot of great guys out there, and I just love the opportunity to keep playing at the end of the day.
And I will talk about that too, because your stats are incredible. Right, having it here for the OJALL, I mean, 106 games, 81 goals, 121 assists. So a lot of penalty minutes, so 189. But take that out the equation. I mean, you're putting up incredible numbers year in and year out.
Yeah, I play a lot more defense in the indoor game, so a lot of that comes with transition. I like to push the ball and kind of play fast and start the offense from the defense. But those guys, the guys in Windsor, the guys in Burlington, they gave me a lot of great opportunities to play fast. So I'm very thankful. Yeah. And all the penalty minutes they're not all bad penalty minutes. There's some good ones in there.
Of course. And with that too, I mean, it also helps establish chemistry and build connections. I mean, a couple of Stony Brook guys playing alongside you as well in the Chiefs with Matt Anderson and Kyle Yaber. So what was it like getting to know? I assume you knew them first there, and then they came over to Stony Brook. What was that like?
So I played with Kyle. We started playing together when we were 9 years old. We played for Team Ontario. So we would represent our province. Back in Canada, we have provinces. So it would be like Team Ontario versus like British Columbia, Alberta, Quebec. Six Nations had a team, the Iroquois, and we would all go to this tournament and we'd play. So me and Kyle started playing together at a young age. And then I met Anderson once I started playing junior. And it was just when you get in a locker room with guys, the connections you build connections pretty quick. It's probably the easiest way to make friends. So there was no questions about how we were going to do when we got to Stony Brook. Even Mike McCannell, when I played junior B, me and Mike McCannell would play in the Eastern final against each other. He would be in Orangeville, I'd be in Windsor, and we'd go like toe to toe all the time. There's a funny story. The last junior game or the last junior series I played for the Ontario final, me and McCannell are lined up next to each other on a face-off, and he gives me a nice little cross check on the hip, and we're kind of chirping back and forth, and I give him one back, and the ref only sees me, and they go first face-off of the game. They just give possession to McCannell, and they start the game with the ball. So that was a tough look, but yeah, he got me there. So.
Oh man! And again, it's about those relationships. I think at the end of the day, that it's really what makes the sport so beautiful. And I mean, again, just going back to you and Kyle Yaber. I mean, as you said, you two knew each other since you were 9 years old, and you both, I think, are two very entertaining players. I mean, something I want to talk about is there's this Twitter account. I'm sure you know about it, about Kyle Yaber and mopping. You kind of break that down to us out of the loop. Why does he hate to mop?
Kyle Yaber hates to mop because Kyle Yaber, for some reason, just always happens to be the busiest kid I know.
Unbelievable.
I don't know how. He's always got more. We've been in the same classes for 4 years, every class the same, and he's just always got homework and he's always got stuff to do. He's always got a phone call. He's the busiest guy I know. So after we try to clean the house probably once a week, maybe sometimes it stretches to twice. And we'd always ask Kyle to mop, and his famous line is, buddy, it's not getting done today. And those kind of just stacked up. So it was kind of just like an ongoing joke. And I don't know if I should reveal the source of the account. I don't know if that's good or not, but there's someone in our house who just graduated from Stony Brook who does a great job trying to hold Kyle accountable and letting the public know what's going on with Kyle and his mopping status. So,
it is working. I mean, it has really gotten a lot of followers over the past couple months. And on that too, you lived with 10 other teammates, and I got some questions here for you from some of those teammates. And one here from CJ Trenkles on that. What is it like living in a house with 10 other insane teammates on Stony Brook Lacrosse?
Living with 10 guys is, there's always something to do, you could say. There's always somebody looking to do something or go somewhere. So you never have to worry about looking for a friend because all your friends are usually sitting on the couch next to you. We live with a lot of great guys, and I think it helped the team chemistry a unbelievable amount. And you build brotherhoods, like all these guys I've lived with, this is family now. I've been away from home for a long time. And, we got birthdays, we got Thanksgiving, you got anything. You're going to somebody else's house, their family, they're letting you feel at home. So I'm really thankful for everything that happened in this house and the people it's let me meet and everything like that.
Yeah, and they want to know a lot about you. Tom Holland really wants to know, what's your favorite movie and why?
We watch a lot of movies in this house. We're probably good for 3 or 4 a night. So we got Lords of Dogtown, we got A Bronx Tale, Dazed and Confused, Everybody Wants Some.
Oh, you guys classics.
Yeah,
we sound like great movies.
Yeah, we watch it all. Tom Holland kind of got me back on Bronx Tale. I watched it when I was younger, and then he starts talking in that accent, and then he starts using 3 fingers like Stony, and you can't help but have to put it on or put something on YouTube with some clips. So
yeah, Chaz Palminteri is always a real good classic. I mean, I've seen him when he had some roles in the Law and Order franchise, and yeah, he's really got the roles down well.
Yeah,
I was close to seeing Bronx Tale was when it was on Broadway, but it was so close. I really wanted to see that.
Tom Holland actually saw that, and that's what he brings up every time. I might have heard that 100 times. But then that stuff always translates to an inside joke or on the field or anything. Like you got Han trying to call the offense out with 3 fingers or something like that. You just
during games.
Yeah, you just always have not during games, just in practice.
Oh, during practice, during scrimmages. That's fair.
But it's just stuff that kind of brings us all closer together. And you have those tough days at practice. You're practicing every day. You're working hard. You see something like that, or someone says something quotes a movie, and it just puts a smile back in your face, and you're kind of dialed back in. You're happy to be there. I know we're probably the luckiest guys in the world. We get to play sport every single day, but some days it gets hard. So when you watch those movies, you go back to the locker room, you're joking around. It makes it a lot easier to go to practice every day, even on those days where it's a little hard getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing you want to do is start making it feel like work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just have to.
But that's a long-standing tradition with the lacrosse team. Generations before you guys. One guy, which I'm sure everybody hears about when they join the lacrosse team, is the legend of Kevin Crowley.
Yeah.
One of the greatest team players the Stony program has ever had. And still lighting it up in the pros.
Yeah.
You may have the opportunity to face him, but also other Stony Brook alumni in the pros too. Do you even give that much thought? Getting an opportunity to face some of these legends over the years? And of course, C.J. Trankel has two brothers who went ahead of him. That's a little bit of history there. But the opportunity to face the alumni there, was that, are you looking forward to that when you finally do get into the pros?
It's still a little bit surreal and nothing's locked in yet, but I haven't thought about it too much. But now that you bring it up, it's kind of wild to think, because these guys like Challen, Ryland, Kevin Crowley, they're such great players.
Yeah.
And I would never be able to compare myself to them. So just being able to play on the same floor or be in the same game as them would be quite the opportunity and something I definitely cherish. And I'd be very thankful if that came to fruition. So
Challen Rogers and Ryland Reeves, of course, former teammates of yours.
I never had the opportunity to play here with Challen, but I got to play senior with him a couple times back in Canada, senior for the Oakville Rock. So you see this guy play, and it's just all three of them. They make the game look so easy. So it's definitely something I'm very excited for, and if I have the opportunity, I'm definitely going to take it all in and still try and be a competitor, but kind of know who I'm around.
When you say you play for Stony Brook, do you still have trouble explaining to people where it is?
Not really. When I knew Stony Brook was when we were making a name here was when you went back home and you said Stony Brook and people knew what it was. So it was never too much about, like, when you're on Long Island, I feel like everybody knows Stony Brook to an extent, but when you go home and people know, you're definitely making a real splash, because I feel like when you're in Canada, people only know like the big time. They know Syracuse, they know Duke, they know North Carolina, they know Notre Dame, they know Maryland, but now like they know Stony Brook, they're starting to know a couple other places. So it kind of shows that the league's getting a lot more competitive, and Stony Brook's putting themselves on the map where like a lot of kids know about it. It's going to help with recruiting. It's going to help. Like it's amazing that like you don't have to explain this anymore. And there's a splash. There's a Stony Brook splash.
Patrick Kaschalk, we're talking to him right now here in WUSB Stony Brook. We just want to reintroduce everybody. Matt Mankiewich, Ken Fermin, Zach Wilson, also along for the ride here until midnight, by the way. And, guys, you have anything for Patrick?
Yeah. Before we let you go, Pat, I do want to talk about the NHL, because you said you're a big fan, the Red Wings fan, as you previously said, and they've had a rough couple of years, but are trying to get back into the shape they were a few years ago when they were final contenders and finals Stanley Cup champions. So what is your thought process now as a Red Wings fan for the upcoming season?
The upcoming season, I wouldn't say my hopes are too high yet, but we got Yzerman back in the front office, and we saw what he did in Tampa. So he made those teams in Tampa, I'd say. But with him in front office, he's gonna do a lot of great things, and these are just things that take time. I became a bandwagon Islanders fan in here. It was watching that run.
I think everyone on the island did.
Yeah, so it was nice.
I bet you appreciate how the Islanders have been the last two seasons.
Mm-hmm. Tom Hahn got me on that again. We watch a lot of hockey. He likes to relish on his high school hockey career. He says he was one of the best of all time. He shows this one breakaway goal to me all the time. It's might be the highlight of his life. I don't know. We'll let him hold on to that.
So that's great. And with that too, in the NHL, Red Wings making moves today with Mark Stahl coming back for another year. I'm sure you're happy about that. Not too shabby last season.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy too, so you can never have too many of them guys that can show young guys the ropes and how to be a real pro.
Yeah,
So I definitely can't complain about that. But it's nice. Back to the Islanders, we got Matt Martin's a Windsor boy, so he's it's nice watching him do well. And then you got Zach Cassian, who's a Windsor boy for the Oilers. So it's nice. I just kind of I'm a Wings fan, but right now I'm kind of just trying to support. There's a lot of guys you want to see well and see do well, and that's what I'm kind of been watching lately.
Hey, for us, it's Cal Palmieri.
Yeah,
he's local from Long Island.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think the big thing too is, so this week especially was that expansion draft. Seeing what pieces were taken. Red Wings, I don't think were hit too bad. Losing Cholowski, was only 23. Didn't really secure a spot in the Wings lineup. But for the New York teams, I mean, on one hand, losing a young guy for the Rangers like Colin Blackwell, and another losing credible goal scorer in Jordan Eberle for the Islanders. I mean, the Kraken, those are probably two of their best pickups in what was an unusual draft. What were your thoughts on that draft?
I just love Jordan Eberle. I grew up watching him. A big thing in Canada around Christmas time is watching the World Juniors. So I just remember watching Jordan Eberle at a young age doing so well in that game, and we'd go out and after he scores his goals, we're going out and playing road hockey. We shovel the street and we're playing. So it's just nice seeing that guy do well, and he's an unbelievable talent. So that's definitely going to hurt the Islanders, but I think that's a great guy to build a franchise with for the Kraken. So I think they definitely did a great job.
Yeah, and a really unusual draft. They had a lot of stars available. Carey Price, Vladimir Tarasenko, PK Subban didn't opt for any of those. And even when they made their selections, there was, at least for me, a very puzzled reaction in the sense of, there's a lot of, I don't want to say no names, but a lot of bottom six guys I didn't really see getting picked up from the Kraken unless they were going to flip him. And as of now, they really haven't done that with anyone big. So, I mean, what are your thoughts seeing that and anticipating how they're going to start?
I think they're just kind of taking Vegas's template they made. They're taking guys that are hard workers. They might not have a first line, or they'll have a first line, but they're not going to have a fourth line. They're going to have a first line, 2 second lines, and a third line. They're going to have guys that work hard, that didn't get enough respect where they were before, and I think they're just going to be fine. Vegas drew out the template. They're there every year. They're competitive. So I know the draft's changed a little bit, but I still think they're going to be able to have success early, and I think that's important because it draws a fan base and it shows other owners, if they want to grow the league anymore, that this is something that can make money and it's sustainable. And the more they show it's just sustainable, the better the league's going to do.
And Eberle's definitely going to be part of that top line, probably with Jared McCann or Yanni Gord. Mm-hmm. But to me, I thought for Seattle, something that's going to get them a lot of wins is going to be their defense. I mean, having the top pair of Adam Larson and Mark Giordano, I mean, I thought that was two great pickups. And to follow that off with Carson Soucy and Jamie Oleksiak in the second line, I mean, I think those are two strong pairs that are going to help protect Chris Streicher, who I think is going to have a great year, and probably Vitek Vanacek unless they look to flip him.
Yeah, I'm not too versed on that. I know the main four there, but if you have four good defensemen and you can run and you're deep on the front end, you're gonna start playing that kind of Islanders hockey where, which changed throughout the year, but as trademarked, you could say it's a little bit more low scoring and just protecting the net. But at the end of the day, if you're winning games, it doesn't matter how you're getting it done. And if they're building out from their own end forward, they've done a great job.
Yeah. I think helps Seattle. They're in the Pacific Division. Right. Really building that roster, and they're in the Pacific Division, so really outside of Vegas everything's a giant question mark. Maybe Edmonton is following up behind the Golden Knights. So I think that definitely strengthens Seattle in terms of getting a playoff spot this early. But I mean, as you guys said, I'm sure Matt and Zach, you agree. The team to watch on New York is going to be the Islanders. I mean, they are coming off 2 tremendous seasons and over expectations, and seeing some of the moves the Rangers made over the past week. I mean, there are a lot of question marks going on, especially trading the top winger in Buchnevich for scraps.
I'm a big believer in the house that Ruth built theory, that the original Yankee Stadium back in 1923 was built to accommodate more fans and get out of the Polo Grounds, but it was built because the Yankees had gotten good after acquiring Babe Ruth. Seattle, for example, with the Mariners, when they got Griffey and A-Rod, they got good, and they upgraded their field. And the Islanders are moving into an upgraded arena just in time after having 2 successful seasons. And I think this basically happens all over sports. I mean, take a look at the dedicated soccer buildings we have now because of the roots that MLS has put down. So that is, to have a team ready to win when you're moving into a new building, I think is very, very important. By the way, it was also announced this past week that the Islanders will be playing 13 straight road games, and that's not
Insane.
So unusual when you're opening up a new building. The Devils had to do the same thing when they opened up the Prudential Center in 2007. Now, as far as
13,
Seattle
I think, is unusual.
One thing I like about this is that Seattle will be competitive immediately, just like Vegas was. Maybe they don't go to the Stanley Cup final, but when you're trying to get people to buy into the league by offering an expansion franchise, when you're trying to get a city to build you a new arena, when you're trying to get a lot of people to spend a lot of money to establish a franchise in a new city, you better give them a relatively easy path to building a winner, because it's not like it was 40 years ago. You put a flag into the ground and say, new franchise. And the franchise is terrible for like the first 10 years of its existence. Nowadays, they're setting it up. When they had expansion drafts in the past, teams were allowed to leave their fourth-line players, or you had a bunch of minor leaguers. They really didn't have much available in terms of talent. Anybody who was a name on your team was probably at the end of his career. That's not necessarily the case anymore. They realized that in order to grow the league, you really have to hit the ground running in a new city.
Yeah, agreed. And it's going to be fun to watch for sure. But again, I think Seattle could have structured that roster definitely better in terms of getting some more veterans, more star caliber players. But at the same time, I think defense and goaltending is going to be their strong suit. So as Pat, you said, if they're able to really establish that Islanders-like style of play where, defense is going to back you up day in and day out, you're only allowing a goal or two a game, then, yeah, I think Seattle is going to have a good start. I don't see them matching Vegas, and I feel confident it will be proven wrong in terms of them going on to the finals. But at the same time, they got almost $30 million in cap space where they can make a lot of big moves, if not now, then at least before the next trade deadline. And you can see
they will.
Not entirely. Yeah, I was going to say, and if they're able to really capitalize on that, then that could be a team that ultimately provides a challenge towards some of the other best teams in the NHL, like Tampa Bay, like the Islanders, like Montreal, like Vegas.
I think Tampa's going to have to sell a little bit too, because they got to.
We're already seeing it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great talent there that could be picked up, but from getting veterans, I'm a huge believer in veterans, but the Leafs, they try to get veterans this year, and I think they almost got too many. So I think they're in that space right now, the Kraken, with how many do we get and which ones do we get? What roles do we want them to play? How much are they going to play? And a lot of these guys all signed 1-year deals. Veterans are signing 1-year deals now. So a lot of those are probably getting done right now, or they're in communications right now to figure out, we don't want too many, but we got to get the right ones so they could teach these people, or teach the young rookies like what it's like to be a pro, and give those people who have been hockey fans in Seattle a name that they know. So I think it's a hard job finding a good veteran.
Yeah,
Well, also
absolutely.
getting these guys to play together too. But that's what you hire a coach for. They're going to be interesting turns because they're not done. They now have a roster, and now they're going to be offering people to improve it even further. So they're far from done. But now the NHL, the hockey as a general rule, and Pat, you can definitely attest to this, has probably the deadest offseason of any sport. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the offseason is the summer. That once everybody's done with free agent signings and draft and dealing and everything, they go out to the deepest parts of Canada, and you don't hear from them again until the first week in September. Nothing happens. And I think that's what people are going to be doing right now. Because obviously the offseason is a little bit shorter this year because the final ran all the way to the end of June. But people just need their rest.
Yeah, and I'm a Tigers fan, but I don't know too much about baseball, and I'm just going to try and compare the two. You could get hockeyed out. You're watching a lot of games. There's a lot of games going on. There was games on every night. So
there was 5 straight months.
Yeah, so I think hockey kind of needs that rest more so this year. And I think that can happen with baseball too. Like there's games on so much. There's so much going on. Like you're consumed by it for so long. And then it's kind of funny how you kind of just go cold turkey on it real quick. But I think it almost has to happen because there's so much of it going on at once.
Yeah, I also think
there's those Detroit Tigers, hottest team in baseball over the past 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, I was riding the wave at the start of the season, and it was kind of painful. And Tom Dugan, a Stony Brook D Mitty, we call them the faceless men. They don't get enough credit. Hardest workers on the team.
Oh yeah.
We go back and forth. He's a Mets guy, and he was just the Mets are a great team, but I just told him don't sleep on my Tigers, and I know they'll come around. And I told him they were going to sweep the Yankees, and he said they're going to get swept by the Yankees. And we were at my uncle's cottage, and they swept the Yankees. And he goes, Pat, I'll give it to you. The Tigers might be turning it around. So I'm staying loyal, and I'm hoping for the best. But they're doing a great job, and I just hope they keep stringing them together.
Did have a rough weekend. They've lost 3 in a row, but they're still in the thick of things for a wild card. They're 9 back, but they were much further back a month ago. And
they're 22 back a month ago. So to even be 6 teams under 500 is remarkable.
But the great thing about it is that, well, first of all, that's what the wild card's for. The race is always going to be tight. But this is something that and I've made this comment, and we segue to the Yankees, we'll talk about it a little more, is that you can basically take a vacation up until August 1st. And if you're still somewhere within striking distance, then you can turn it on and win it all. How do I know this? The San Francisco Giants did it 3 times.
It's true.
Yeah, we know
San
what
Francisco Giants were zombies until August hit. And then all of a sudden, they wake up and all of a sudden they're hoisting the trophy. It's amazing. It really is amazing what they were able to do, but it proved something. That a lot of the alarms, well, first of all, if you cover sports, every single day is drama, or you're trying to create drama. And the players will tell you, and again, Pat, you can back me up on this, is that this is why we don't let ourselves get too far up or too far down. because you got to play tomorrow.
Yeah, there's always another game. The same thing happened with the St. Louis Blues, I think 3 years ago. They were the worst team in the NHL. They win the Stanley Cup. Like, it happens in all sports where, you know, a team can start clicking to an extent at any time if there's enough time left in the season. And once that click happens, you got to watch out, because once you start flowing, the chemistry's there. You can go from the worst to the best. These guys are all professional athletes. They can all play the game. So there's no question on their ability. It's just about getting their job done. And once they do that and figure out how within that system, anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, we know how that whole process is, and the Giants are looking like one of the best teams in Major League right now, which is also really impressive. So, yeah, things can really change.
Well, they're the best right now.
Yeah, really the best. I mean, like, some tiny bit better than Houston and Boston, since that is, of course, on the other side. But that just makes the NL West race just a lot more intriguing than it was the last few years, when it's been nothing but the Dodgers, and now it looks like they finally have some competition.
Well, the Giants and the Dodgers have always been long-standing rivals, but here's the thing. San Francisco Giants are the best team in baseball right now, and the Dodgers are only 2 back, and San Diego's only 5.5 back. So right now, you make an argument that's the most competitive division in baseball.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. The NL West and the NFC West, both of them in their national prowesses in football and baseball over this past season, we're going to be probably expecting a lot of that to continue over the next few seasons.
A lot of bad blood, a lot of tight competition there for sure. And the NL West, it's really so close that it's going to be regardless of where these teams are seated ultimately when they make the playoffs. I'm sure all three will. It is going to be a back and forth battle until the final out's made. No question about that. And all three teams making moves, especially today with the Padres picking up Adam Frazier. They are not content, despite being among 3 best teams in the MLB. They are not content with their place right now. The Padres currently in 3rd place in the West and eyeing that top spot and making moves to do so. Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we put it like that, and the NL wild, and if that's how it turns out to be, the NL wild card race between the Padres and the Giants, maybe if the Dodgers win. But if you put down that technical NL West wild card race, that's just gonna be ridiculous.
Oh, it's be bad blood. There might be a fight breaking out too.
Well, it's also possible, the way things are looking right now, if the season ended today, the top 3 teams in the NL West would be in the playoffs.
Right.
That's logically possible. When was the last time you had 3 teams from the same division in this playoffs?
Well, since the wild card went to two teams, it's easier to have. Obviously, it's the only way it can happen. I don't think it has, though. But it's only been, 5 years? 6?
I'll say I think last year, recall, Yankees,
that was pretty
Blue
much
Jays making it.
I mean, logically, last year it was possible for 4 teams from the same division to be in, even though that didn't happen. I mean, we saw there were the Braves and the Marlins, and there was the Padres and the Dodgers. It's really hard to tell. Oh, yeah, actually, I do remember that 3 teams from the same division last year. It was the AL East. You had the Blue Jays, you had the Rays, and you had the Yankees.
Okay. Well,
so the last
Blue
time
Jays, the Braves?
No, Blue Jays and Rays.
I meant the Blue Jays,
Tampa,
Yankees, and
Rays.
I said Rays.
Yeah, Rays. Speaking of which, that's the Yankees' next opponent. But, Pat, you were talking about A Bronx Tale as a movie your friends like to quote. For the older generation, it's the Godfather movies, 1 and 2 in particular. And we'll give a little concession to 3 because that 1, they pulled me back in line. Only decent line in the whole movie. But wall to wall, 1 and 2, I mean, people know it by heart. So what does Mike Vaccaro do? Vaccaro's my age, okay? So, Godfather all the way. He compares the Yankees' loss today, and you guys have seen the Godfather movies, right? When I describe the scene to you, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, he compares it to the scene in Godfather 2 where Vito Corleone, the young Vito Corleone, played by De Niro, drives a knife into Don Cheech, goes back to Sicily to get his revenge. Okay, as you know, there were other mob hits throughout the two movies, but that was the most dramatic of all because he takes a knife and just drives it in there. And that's how he describes today's Yankee loss. Carrying a no-hitter into the 8th inning and ending the 8th inning 1-run down.
Yeah, Pat, I think you're ahead of the curve in terms of being a Tigers fan. I think a lot of Yankee fans might have just switched teams after seeing today's performance. I mean, it is unbelievable. If realistically, was any other team, be unbelievable. I mean, again, as you said, no-hitter, virtually perfect through 7 innings, and in one swoop, they managed to not only blow the no-hitter, but just blow the game. And a big one at that against a conference rival, a division rival. I mean, words really can't describe the botchery they committed today.
Yeah, you can't even make it up. It's unfathomable.
Well, first of all, managers make the best move that they can possibly make based on past performances. And Esteban Loaizaga looked great yesterday, coming off COVID, and you figure, bring him in the next day, same thing, right? Couldn't get anybody out. And the problem with now this new MLB rule, you got to face 3 batters, all get hits. But why do you leave him in for a 4th batter? I mean, get Britton in immediately. You realize, does it take 4 hitters, let alone 3, to realize that a pitcher hasn't got it when he gives up 3 straight hard hits?
Yeah, I don't know where that line's drawn, where enough's enough, but it's kind of like that saying, they're just trying to feed the fever, and so he just didn't have it, but they were still just trying to get it back, and he wasn't throwing his stuff.
And that's something where especially as a Detroit fan over the past few years, where it's, to me, that's bad management. It has written all over it. I mean, the signs were obvious, and if we're from home able to figure it out, hey, we don't got it today, pull him out. And you're not, and you're right there in the dugout making the moves. There are red flags, and it's not the first time either. The Yankees management, Aaron Boone in particular, has done this. I mean, go back a couple weeks ago to the Yankees-Mets game. Rollins Chapman doesn't have it. Brings him out there, try to get a save, he's blown his last 2 or 3. And what does he do? Gives up a home run to Pete Alonso. Ultimately, they lose that game.
Well,
I mean, and time again, pitching especially, there have been times where, these pitchers have been left out to dry. They don't got it, and you're thinking, all right, you're going to see a pitching switch come in. Nope. And ultimately what happens, the Yankees find a way to make another worst loss of the year happen. I mean,
But then the only thing I would say is how much belief does management have in the next guy up too? Because that's a big thing when you're pulling a pitcher. How much belief do you got in the next guy? So sometimes that's why you leave a guy too long. Go ahead.
Yeah,
well, this Chapman has been having issues for over a month now, which is why Ken has a very good point, because you don't let him walk the bases loaded. Yeah, again, they don't pay me Aaron Boone's salary, okay? And he does have a track record, and he's there for a reason. They pay him the big bucks for a reason. But both instances, he had an opportunity to get a pitcher who clearly didn't have it out before. In other words, take him out a batter too early versus a batter too late. And he had opportunities in both instances. Now, I understand, especially with a closer, you have to have confidence in your guy, and you have to show confidence in your guy. If you pull the leash too soon, you'll lose him. I understand that. But at what point do you realize he just doesn't have it? You only 3 batters. That's the thing.
Agreed. And on Chapman, you can at least give him the credit of this week where he was actually able to get a couple saves for once,
Right.
Post All-Star break. So that you really couldn't do. I mean, just a ridiculous ERA. The last 15 games, the ERA is over 11. I mean, yeah, that's not even, AAA. That's AA numbers right there. But this loss, it really was mind-boggling. Again, Herman, he had an inning where he struck out 4 batters in a single inning. And the crazy part about that stat, that's not even the first time that happened this season for the Yankees. I think Loizaga did it a couple months ago. But even with that, the Yankees were able to, the starters at least were able to hold the Red Sox to 5 earned runs over 24 innings. And they still couldn't take 2 big games, especially the one today, allowing not only the Red Sox to win the season series, but to come back when they really shouldn't have. The door should have been shut a while ago, riding on that incredible performance from Herman. And at the end of the day, no one's talking about that. It's just...
It rips your heart out when you do everything right and it all goes wrong anyway. Now, it also is part of the game.
I would say
that you can do everything right and still go wrong.
Yeah, and having Pat here for your perspective. I mean, if you're a part of those losses, how do you, keep going when you got a season that really, especially right now, to me, looks lost? The Yankees are over 500, but at the same time, you're still 4th in the division, just lost the season series against your biggest rival. I mean, how do you keep going telling yourself you still got a shot?
I think the biggest thing for some guys is, it's happened to me before, where you get too mentally involved in the game and the game within the game. And I think sometimes the best thing for guys, now I can't speak to guys at their level, but from my personal experience, is just stepping away from the sport, taking a day off, taking 2 days off, not watching it, and just kind of almost rebooting, because they still have enough time to do that to be successful to an extent. But you really have to just kind of look at yourself in the mirror, look at the guys in the room and say, are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? And all right, we're going to come back. Say it's Thursday. We're coming back on Monday and we're putting 1 foot in the ground and we're just going step by step. That little break or that day off, or just like, I know their schedules are crazy, but just stepping away from the sport because you get into it so much. And once those like bad games, those losses build up, I don't even want to speak on a pitcher because I don't really understand what it's like to be on the mound by yourself, but like, just step away and just kind of restart one day. That's what I do personally. And I can't kind of relate totally to what these guys do at this level, but I can definitely see how you could get overwhelmed with the sport.
I think you bring a great point again, because this to me, those are really the words I think that the Yankees should really follow through. You got a lot of guys. Well, they're missing players because of COVID and other injuries, of course. But, even in the long term, it feels like there's a lot of guys who had a lot of success last year. And they just look overwhelmed. And there's really, really struggling. It goes up and down the lineup. Where you're going to talk about someone like DJ LeMahieu, for example, or Stanton, or still LeMahieu, but, Odor's actually stepped up, but Torres or Urshela. Those guys have really looked overwhelmed for a lot of the season. And for me, I feel like this Yankees team needs a restart, whether that means getting a restart in the management front, a restart in the players front. To me, if this team to be successful, something's got to change, and fast, because you're already 10 games out. first place, even more in the wild card. And again, blowing a game of this magnitude in the way that they did it, mind you, it doesn't scream playoff baseball to me in any rate. This is a Yankees team that I really can't see having a great rest of the summer, when you're putting up performances like that. And it's not even the first time this week where you've blown a 4-0 lead, losing the game 5-4.
This is another thing. You look at it, the Yankees should have taken 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox. Instead, they gave away 2 games. The upside to all of this is that despite their offensive issues, they're overcoming them, number one, because these guys that have been added as a result to guys being quarantined due to COVID have expanded the Yankees game. And we'll get into that because this is a league-wide thing going on. This is an interesting phenomenon. They're stealing bases. They're going station to station, playing small ball like they were not doing prior to this. They weren't built for it, but now they are. So I see someone on social media commenting about the offensive deficiencies, which we all know about. We've recited them since April. But they were still leading 4-0 in the 8th. And that's the bottom line. You take 4 games in particular in the past month, and you turn those heartbreaking losses into wins, and their outlook for the division looks infinitely better. So that tells you that this team is presently constituted, if it gets all its aspects together, can still make a run. Especially because they're facing Tampa Bay next, and they're breathing down Boston's neck right now. So you can really, even though you lost the season series, so what? That's not what you're playing for. I mean, you could lose every single game to the Red Sox and still win the World Series. Matter of fact, when the Yankees last won the World Series, they lost 9 straight to the Red Sox. Didn't matter. The point here is that this Red Sox team is beatable. Okay, you proved you could hit a guy who had nothing, but you couldn't touch a guy who was clicking. You had a starter go 7 innings, and you could not touch him. And that tells me that this team is beatable. That means the Rays are beatable. The Yankees are beating themselves. And I think Cashman's going to have to make a couple moves at the deadline. It sucks having to make deals when everybody knows what your needs are. You're highly motivated, and they're going to want the moon for anybody you want. But you're stuck with it. That's what you have to do. You got to somehow improve that bullpen at the deadline. And, yeah, you find somebody, my personal feeling about Chapman, he'll get good again. He'll be dependable for about another month or so. And they'll kill you in the postseason. So. He'll get you there, and they'll kill you. Deal him. That's my feeling. I mean, it's almost like, you know how athletes tend to be superstitious? They try to do the same things over and over again when things are going good. That's actually very scientific. Because when you do an experiment in a lab, you have to do the same thing over and over again to guarantee the same result. Otherwise, the experiment isn't valid. So that's the mentality behind superstition. So I'm a little bit superstitious about Chapman. Don't put him in a position to kill you again.
And to me, again, his best spot is off this team. I don't know who would take him, but if they could get rid of him, I mean, I really don't see it. He had a great start, but again, ever since the spider tag ban, he has lost it. He had a couple saves which he desperately needed, but again, he's not a guy who I see making big mark. And as you said, proven track record of costing the Yanks games already, regardless of if team is cheating or not, like the Astros were the first time. But again, this Yankees team, again, as they are now, no way they're even sniffing playoffs. So they got to change. And on one hand, it's great seeing these young guys step up. Greg Allen, for example, really coming into his own. Formerly,
he could be a great fourth outfielder and can take that job away from Gardner.
I agree. The problem, the Yankees weren't really designed to have Brett Gardner's job taken away, especially now and in the way where he's doing it, where Gardner's not hurt. Allen's just playing better. In a sense like that, those are the pieces you need to move where those guys are getting outplayed by the AAA players. Got to get them off your team. All right.
Well, that's what happened in 2016.
It is, yeah.
That is exactly what happened. Teixeira was on his last legs. Beltran, they dealt him. And they made room for the Judges and the Sanchez's, and they traded Chapman for Torres, and they traded Andrew Miller. I think they should have gotten Andrew Miller back and not Chapman, but that's another story. But the whole point was that one time when the Yankees were sellers, they timed it perfectly. They didn't really miss a beat. I mean, think about it. The Yankees have not had a losing season since 1992. That's before any of you guys were born. And, I mean, going your entire lifetime and your favorite team not having a losing season, that's nearly impossible. The Red Sox haven't even done that. The Dodgers haven't done that. I mean, the Red Sox, as recently as 2012, lost 90 games. So, but on the other hand, the Red Sox know when to blow things up. The Yankees never do.
Yeah, to me, this is the time where they got to make moves to make it now. Not then they need a restart, especially from the management position. Whether that be Boone, Cashman, like even Steinbrenner. Something's got to give to get them out of position where they're at now. And to me, it's going to take moving pieces and move them fast. There's a market's really starting to grow as we inch closer to the deadline. And we saw on the opposite end of the Mets where they made some moves and it paid off. As we saw today with Rich Hill, who we had a bad 7th inning, but before that had 6 pretty good innings. As the Mets continue to refine their rotations as they deal with the injuries going on. And their recent signings and trades are starting to pay off for them.
Well, one important reason why the Mets are still in first place is that, well, first of all, they have some games in hand because they still haven't caught up with everybody because of all the games lost due to COVID early on in the season. But they're 30-15 at home. In terms of winning percentage, only San Francisco is better at 31-15, so it's a half game better. But they're sub 500 on the road at 22-29. But that home record at Citi Field definitely helps them, and that's what keeps them there. Because fact is, they've been hitting better since the break, but they were hitting so badly in the first half. They should have had double-digit lead at that point because the Braves and the Nationals were barely treading water.
Agreed, but at the same time, they proved that they could win games, and especially games where, it's close and it comes down to the wire. They proved they could win it. The Mets won their 5-4 game earlier today. A game they were trailing as well, as I said, trailing 4-1 in bottom 7th. Entering bottom 7th, where Pete Alonso is a win against a different level, hitting 2 home runs today, helping them take the series against Toronto. I mean, he has played phenomenally, number one. And I think he's been a big catalyst in that resurgent offense. And we've seen it too again, Brandon Nimmo coming back. McNeil had a couple of big hits during the series. They're really starting to get going. And I think that's going to be big as this progresses. And as you said, for the Mets, they're in a spot right now where I think they'll be able to have a home field advantage, at least up through the first round. And, Pat, someone who's been in a similar situation before, obviously, at least for Stony Brook, having that home field advantage is big when it comes not only for late in the season, but playoffs.
Yeah, that home field advantage is The home field advantage is huge, but I think the biggest thing is after a long season, not having that travel right away. You have that time where you can kind of stay at home, you can get comfortable at home again, and it makes your day-to-day life a lot easier. So yeah, the fans are awesome, but I think it's just like not getting that extra flight, that extra bus ride, like that stuff is just that speaks wonders to your body. So I think if you can get that, like you're helping yourself in so many different ways that people don't even think about.
The Mets need that. With all the injuries, they're still racking up.
You know what? You bring up an interesting point. Way, way, way back in 03 and 04, the Montreal Expos, before they moved to Washington and became the Nationals, had to play a couple of months out of the season in Puerto Rico. And they did that because nobody was watching games in Montreal. But in 03, they were in a pennant race. And they had to go down to Puerto Rico. And Bud Selig, because Major League Baseball owned the team, wouldn't allow them to expand their roster for put minor leaguers on like everybody else does in September. So that basically buried them.
Yeah, the guys are burnt out. They're traveling so much. They're out of rhythm, and it's just like it's so much on, like, these guys put so much on their body with all these games they play, and it's like the home field advantage speaks more than to just the fans, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, people like to call it home cooking, and literally is, no doubt about it. But the home cooking comes from a lot of other sources too. You don't have far to travel. You have your fan base. But, and again, we're asking you, how much does it influence the officiating when you're at home? Is it really that much different, home versus road, no matter where you go?
I think it depends a little bit. It depends how far from home you go. I think the crowd can honestly help you a little bit. The crowd makes a couple calls within a game, I think. And I've seen it more in box lacrosse back home, where like we'd have like the same ref like almost every home game, and I'm seeing these guys for 4 or 5 years, and you're on a first name basis, and I don't know if I'm going to get the benefit of the doubt, but if I have a question or I say, like, I have more freedom to talk to a referee instead of having somebody who doesn't know my personality. So I think if the ref knows the person more than just as a number and a player, I don't know about the benefit of the doubt, but on different calls, you never know. But I think it kind of stretches your ability to maybe like argue a little bit or say some stuff that will make them think about the call, because you can express your opinion. But if you get a ref who doesn't know who you are, you can't always express your opinion, and it'll shut you up right away.
I can see that. That's a perfect example. When the refs know you and they know your tendencies, sometimes you probably don't even have to argue. Oh, yeah, he does that all the time, kind of thing. So it does bring up a whole bunch of interesting points. Now we got to talk a little bit. Well, first of all, it kind of segues perfectly NBA Finals to the Olympics, because there are a couple of Milwaukee Bucks champions on the U.S. team. But my point that I want to bring up in particular is how much the rest of the world has caught up to the United States in basketball. They just dropped one to France. France has 3 NBA players in their lineup, and none of them is named Tony Parker, by the way. So they have a new generation of guys. But the point still remains is that you can't simply do what the Dream Team did 30 years ago and just walk all over everybody. It's not like that anymore. You got to work for it. You have a team that has, Chris Middleton, Kevin Durant. I mean, this is a pretty decent team with names on it. But the team you're going up against also has some names on it. It's not like it used to be. It's not like USA France is not like you look it up on Google and YouTube, where Vince Carter dunks over Frederick Weiss, and he was also drafted by the Knicks, and with his hand on Weiss's head. It's not like that anymore. These guys have to earn it.
No, we are in a different era for sure. I mean, in a sense, it really wasn't surprising me in the sense that the games would be a lot more competitive. And even the pair of losses that the Team USA had for in exhibitions really didn't concern me that much. Because at the end of the day, they're exhibitions. You know, these are guys who are tired out at the end of a long NBA season. You know, all of their roster is made up of NBA players. So unlike, you know, the rest of the teams where maybe their off seasons were a bit earlier, these guys are immediately more fatigued and dealing with wear and tear. You know, it's exhibitions. You know, so what? It's you lose to fine tune your craft. This is the eye opener. Okay, losing your first game since 04 is big. You remember that 04 team? They did not end up with the gold or even the silver. No, they were the bronze team, and ultimately that had to lead to the rest of the NBA stars coming back and taking control in 08. But, you know, the remnants are certainly there. And you're right. Again, I think it was really headlined with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, seeing him not only win MVP, you know, last year, but winning Finals MVP this year and having an incredible performance on essentially one leg and dominating the interior, dominating both ends of the floor, leading his team when it looked like this Bucks team was going to get mocked by Phoenix to an NBA championship. Their first in 50 years. I mean, it goes to show you the game has changed. And you're right, international, it has gone international. It's no longer USA versus the world and USA smokes competition. It is going to be hard fought through and through, both men's and women's, may I add, Olympics this year especially. And you're really going to see that. You know, it's a mix again of NBA players. Instead, Evan Fournier playing for Team France, who had a big shot and ultimately gave France the lead. But again, defensively as well, Rudy Gobert was a member of that France team that won today. And, you know, knowing all of these guys, dominating against a lot of these players on Team USA while he was on the Jazz, you know, he was a big factor as well in terms of shutting down the offense when the USA struggled late in the game to score once they hit 74 points. I mean, absolutely, the game has changed. I don't think you could say there's a favorite. Yeah, roster-wise, USA is a favorite, but it is such a more, I would say, balanced sport now than it's been in recent years.
Get a load of this. Of course, Team USA, because every single player is in the NBA, has the most NBA players on it. Guess who has second most?
France.
Nigeria. 8 players on Nigeria's current roster played in the NBA this past year. Now, are they all superstars? No, but they're at that level. So when Team Nigeria beats Team USA in a friendly, you got to take them seriously.
But I think another thing is it's hard to coach an all-star team. It's hard to It's hard to have guys accept roles on an all-star team. And now we've seen them do it many times, and they've done a great job at it. But when it's a different group every time, a lot of guys might be in a different role, and they have to accept those roles again. They just came from an NBA season where their role could have been completely different. And now you have guys that are licking their lips to have the opportunity to go up against the US, and they're accepting those roles right away because they just want the best chance for their team to compete with this US team. And there's a lot of these guys on the US team that they're so good and they have so many different tendencies for playing in the NBA. And now they come here and they might have to do something different, and it might take them way too long.
What's also interesting about Team Nigeria, this is only a third Olympics. Nigeria didn't field a basketball team until 2012, which, again, I don't know why. The other Nigerians have played in the NBA in the past. But no African nation has made it to the knockout round yet, but this one clearly has a good chance. But they can win it.
Yeah, it is incredible. There's a lot of great teams that can win it, and that aren't the U.S. Australia was the other team that beat the United States. They got some great players. France, as we said, can do it. Spain, as always, has usually been the lead opponent against Team USA, especially when it comes to the most recent uh, Olympic finals. Their parity is there. There are 5 or 6 really great teams that can really give Team USA a challenge on both ends. And on the women's side as well, Team Puerto Rico featuring our own India Pagan.
Yeah, and by the way, she plays Tuesday. Glad we got that in. Who should play first, though?
China.
Oh, China. Okay.
If you want to wake up for an 8 a.m. game, there you go.
Yeah, other side of the world. But, yeah, of course, I open up Team Spain on the men's side, and the first guy I see there, Pau Gasol. Okay, so that tells you they can be dangerous, too. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure I open up Argentina, and there's the roster. And where is he? Oh, no. Nobody I know on Argentina. It's amazing. But in any case, it is 11:58, and we do have to take a look at what's in store because football camps have opened, and Tom Brady just put out a very nice video playing catch with a football throwing machine. And then he throws one, knocks it over. He says, let's go. And that's what the feeling is right now of football. We're going to be talking about things in greater depth as things start to settle out. They start doing 2-a-days and stuff like that. But we're going to be pretty busy. The deadest time in sports is now officially over. It's usually from the end of the NHL and NBA finals until football training camp. Didn't have long because the NBA finals ran so late, but now we have to start thinking about the fall and looking ahead to the fall. Patrick Kaschalk, thank you so much for joining us. And are you going to be around for homecoming?
I'm not sure yet. I'm definitely kind of trying to look at my calendar to open everything up and try and get back down here for an alumni weekend and everything. So I hope I can get down here, but we'll see what happens. If not, though, thank you guys for having me. This was awesome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and letting me come on. If you ever want to do this again, I'd love the opportunity. And this is a great show. This is great for Stony Brook. So thank you guys.
Well, one thing, when we get closer to lacrosse season in particular, we're going to be bringing some alumni on and maybe do a little bit of a preview and just see what they think about next year's team.